Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a super fascinating look at the actual architecture of AI. So, if you're an AI engineer, a data scientist, or honestly, just someone who is obsessed with how modern artificial intelligence actually retrieves and processes information, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to be taking a series of highly technical interview questions. These were curated by NLP expert Colleen KS, and we're treating them as a literal step-by-step master builder's guide for constructing a retrieval-augmented generation system, a RAG system. So rather than just memorizing answers for a job interview, we're going to use these questions to fundamentally understand the blueprint of a master RAG system. Here is our blueprint for today. We're going to look at the RAG Builder's Toolkit, sizing your context window, tuning inference hyperparameters, and finally, leveling up your prompt engineering. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the RAG Builder's Toolkit, laying the foundation. Every great structure starts with a rock-solid foundation, right? So picture this. You're sitting in the interview hot seat, or actually, maybe you're just sitting down with your engineering team to kick off a massive new project. And you're immediately faced with this critical foundational question. Which framework should you actually choose to implement your RAG system? Now, the choices out there can seem completely overwhelming, but the source material breaks this down beautifully for us. Okay, so you basically have three top contenders here: LangChain, LlamaIndex, and Haystack. And each one brings a very distinct architectural strength to the table. If you're looking to build highly customized pipelines, LangChain is absolutely your go-to. Now, if your primary bottleneck is dealing with just massive amounts of data and you need incredibly efficient document indexing and retrieval, LlamaIndex is the specialist you want for that. And if your architecture demands excellent modularity, meaning, you want to easily swap components in and out like Lego bricks, Haystack is a fantastic choice. So what's the actual gold standard here? Well, NLP expert Colleen KS highly recommends LangChain. And why is that? It's really because of its comprehensive ecosystem. See, it's not just about what the code can do. It's about the extensive documentation, the incredibly active community support, and honestly, its unmatched flexibility in handling all sorts of different data sources and LLM integrations. When you're building a foundational system, you absolutely want a framework that has a massive active community backing it up. Moving on to Section 2, sizing your context window, building the capacity. All right, so the foundation is down. Now we actually need to frame this structure. In any RAG system, the size of your large language model's context window is a massive structural decision, and it's literally a double-edged sword. On one hand, right, a larger context window lets you feed more retrieved chunks to the LLM, and more relevant information usually means better, higher quality answers. But eventually, you hit a ceiling. Performance gains start to diminish because you're introducing higher latency. It just takes longer to process all that text. And worse, you risk the dreaded lost in the middle problem. That's where the LLM essentially just forgets or glosses over the information packed into the middle of that massive context payload. It's a super delicate balancing act between capacity and performance. Which brings us to Section 3, tuning inference hyperparameters, the finishing touches. Okay, foundation is set, framing is up. Now we're basically doing the interior design. We're fine-tuning the whole system to behave exactly how we want it to. And first up in our finishing toolkit is temperature. Think of this as a literal dial on your control board that governs the randomness of the AI's generated responses. But how does turning that dial actually play out in practice? Let's break this down. If you crank that temperature dial way down to a low value, you get focused, deterministic, and highly predictable responses. And this is exactly what you want if your RAG system is doing really technical or precise tasks, like answering strict legal questions or writing code. You want predictability there. But if you turn the dial up to a high temperature, the output becomes way more creative, diverse, and varied. Perfect for, say, a marketing copy generator, but absolutely terrible for a medical diagnostic tool. The optimal setting depends entirely on your specific application context. And honestly, you only find that sweet spot through iterative experimentation. Now, right alongside that, you have another layer of control, and that's max tokens. While temperature is controlling the style of the output, max tokens, well, they control the length. It sets a hard limit on exactly how long the generated output can be. And again, you are managing a trade-off here. You're making sure the answers are complete enough to actually be useful, that's short enough to avoid unnecessary latency. You're essentially sculpting the final output to perfectly fit whatever your user needs. All right, last but not least, Section 4, leveling up prompt engineering, the essential next step. So you've built this amazing machine, right? But now You actually have to know how to talk to it. This is an absolutely vital skill set for any data scientist or ML engineer working with LLMs, RAGs, and AI agents. What's awesome is that the author of these interview questions doesn't just leave you with basic Q&A. He actually links out to an incredible GitHub repository completely dedicated to prompt engineering. And this isn't just a list of basic tips. It features actual real-world implementations of over 25 must-know prompt engineering techniques. If you want your custom RAG system to truly shine, this is the essential next step. You just have to master the art of the prompt. And all of this really leaves us with one final critical thought to chew on. You know how to choose your foundational framework now. You understand the delicate balance of the context window, and you know exactly how to twist those dials on your inference hyperparameters, like temperature and max tokens. But are your prompts engineering the right results to truly unlock your system's potential? Because at the end of the day, the architecture is only as good as the instructions you give it. I highly encourage you to go explore those 25 techniques, keep building, keep experimenting, and take your RAG systems to the absolute next level. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy building.